So we have been going through the middle Lam-Rim, the stages to the path to enlightenment, and within that, there's the foundational practice of. We went through the foundational practice of small scope, middle scope, and then the actual practice to the path to enlightenment is the great scope. And within that, is cultivating the bodhicitta mind. And after having cultivated bodhicitta mind, engage in the practice of the bodhisattvas, such as the practice of 6 perfections and the 4 means of gathering and benefiting sentient beings, disciple of sentient beings. And within that, we have last week we finished the 4th perfections, the practice of the perfection of the joyous effort, and now we're in the 5th, 2 last one, the 5th, the perfection of meditations or concentrations, and perfection of wisdom. So if you go to the page number 175, at the very bottom, where is how to train in concentrations, again, like all other perfection, it has 3 main outline, and so the entity or nature of the concentrations and subdivisions and how to cultivate or generate within the one mind continuum. And then in terms of the nature or entity, what does the meditative concentration or meditative stabilization means? It is a mental state, so it is a mind that abides, single pointly on any suitable virtuous objects. So normally, to have a meditative concentration, the object doesn't have to be a virtuous object. The object can be neutral, any object, virtues, or any. But here we are talking about not just a meditative concentration or shamatha, but we are talking about perfection of meditative concentration. So the perfections of meditative concentration, the object has to be virtuous. So it can. So that is where the object here has the virtues, and instead the mind which is able to focus on that object, any suitable virtuous objects, single pointly, without any distraction or excitement, as well as the mental sinking or dullness or laxity, but to be able to keep your mind focused, totally focused, single pointedly focused on the objects without being moved, and as well as with that clarity and intensity or alertness. And so and then in the next page, in terms of classification or subdivisions, then if it is divided in terms from the entity, then there are 2, mundane meditative concentration and super mundane meditative concentration, So I guess mundane meditative concentration are those which meditative concentration that produce, rebirth in the higher rebirth within the samsara, such as God realms. Whereas super mundane meditative concentrations are the meditative concentration that cause to achieve nirvana and fully enlightenment, those concentrations. In terms of the class, there are three, three class of shamatha or meditative concentration, so the class of shamatha, karma abiding, special insight, and then the class which is union of the karma abiding and special insight. And so when it is then divided in terms of the functionings, then again there is a meditative stabilization of concentrations that cause one to have a physical and mental blissfulness, happiness in this life, as well as, and then meditative concentration on stabilizers that manifest the accumulate excellent qualities, which will come later, such as nirvana, fully enlightenment, and so forth. And then meditative stabilization that bring about the welfare of other sentient beings. So the first one, in terms of that brings and abide in the physical and mental bliss. The first is meditative stabilization that generates as one place the mind in meditative equipoise. So when we are in meditative concentration, karma abiding with shamatha, through the power of that meditative concentrations, then there is great joy, there is great bliss. Your body and mind become very first. Your body and mind become very, very. Of course, it will come later. It become very flexible. And with that flexibility, it brings a lot of lightness in your body and mind. And through that kind of lightness and flexibility, it brings a lot of blissfulness and joyfulness, both on physical level and mental level. So, yeah, okay. And then the second is, meditative stabilization is that produce or accomplish a lot of excellent qualities that is common or shared with the practitioners of hearer or solitary realizers, such as clairvoyance. So meditative concentrations is a cause to develop clairvoyance, and of course there are many different kind of clairvoyance, 5-6 different clairvoyance, as well as is the cause that lead to liberations. In order to have liberations, then we need to have a special insight, the wisdom, penetrating wisdom, special insight. In order that wisdom insight, then we need to have the meditative concentration, as well as totality and mastery. So as it says, and the meaning that they're giving there 200 down there. Totality means control over colors and element, and whereas mastery means overcoming the forms and other objects. And then third is meditative stabilization that produce or accomplish welfare for the benefit of other sentient beings in 11 ways by the means of meditative stabilization. Again, we often count the 11 different ways, which we already discussed, I guess, maybe during the second, those 11 different ways of helping and benefiting other sentient beings. And then in terms of how to generate the meditative concentration within one mental continuum, again, like all others, first is contemplating and meditating on advantage of cultivating the meditative concentrations and disadvantage of not cultivating that. So the more we contemplate, the more we feel the benefit of that, the more we feel, and the more we feel disadvantaged and of not cultivating and not having that meditative concentrations. The more you will get inspired to cultivate that. The more you are inspired to cultivate, the more you put effort to practice, and the more you put effort, then the more you will have success in your practice. And the advantage and disadvantage of cultivating and disadvantage of not cultivating here, Lama Tsongkhapa was saying, not going to explain here because he is going to explain later when he go more details in that. And then in terms of bringing the 6 perfections, the other 5 perfections within the practice of meditative concentration, so like similarly, while you continue to engage in the practice of meditative concentrations, then you try to help others by teachings and by giving the instructions and helping them by giving instructions or sharing the knowledge, the wisdom with others. And that is about how to cultivate that, how to practice that meditative concentration, how to develop that, how to maintain that. So that is the practice of generosity of meditative concentration, and then same with the other 6 as mentioned, already mentioned before. I guess maybe we don't need to repeat them again. And then, so meditative concentration, Lama Tsongkhapa comes later and very detailed, very extremely details. And so here he's just kind of, to just go for it briefly, both the last 2 here. And then the next is the perfection of wisdom, the 6th one, and again, that has also 3 sub outlines, or points, the entity or nature of the wisdom, the subdivisions, and how to generate the wisdom within one's mind stream. So what is the nature or entity of the mental state of wisdom? What does that mean? So it's a mental state that truly discriminate and distinguish characteristic and qualities of the objects, the object that is being examined, that is being investigated. So to be able to distinguish, to be able to discriminate the different characteristics, different attributes, different qualities of that object. So that is the, and Lama Tsongkhapa, that is the general definitions or the nature of the wisdom mind. Here is going particularly the wisdom that is skilled in 5 area of knowledge and so forth. So the 5 area of knowledge that you in some of the teaching it says, yeah, I guess the knowledge of language, the knowledge of reasoning and logic, the knowledge of the I don't know exactly in English, like in medicines, the knowledge of medicine and the knowledge of artists or craftships, and the knowledge of inner knowledge that is about the mind, the Dharma, So those are and with those knowledge, those are the tools and knowledge that we need to be more benefit to others, And the main, among all this knowledge, the main knowledge is inner knowledge. That is about learning about your own mind, our own emotions. So that's the Dharma. But other four knowledge are as tools and means to help and benefit, other sentient beings mainly. If you know the language, then of course you will be able to explain things better and more eloquent and so forth, to be able to explain in so many different ways, in an eloquent way, and through that we can help other sentient beings. If we know the reasoning and logic, we can explain things better to others when we explain the Dharma, so we can present them with the reasoning and logic so that they can understand better. And of course, also that can be also helpful to us as well. And if we have the knowledge of medicine, we can be benefit to those who are sick. And if we have the knowledge of, artship or creativities, then we can also help those who need those help. And so those are the 5 areas of knowledge. Then in terms of its subdivision, there are the wisdom realizing the ultimate reality, the emptiness, and the wisdom realizing conventionalities, the wisdom that realizes conventional reality, and wisdom realizing the welfare of sentient beings, and the wisdom that knows, understand how to help and benefit sentient beings, again, another very extremely important tools to help and benefit. Sometimes if we don't have that wisdom, even if we have the right intention, compassion, sometimes we are unable to really be the greatest help and benefit to their real needs. And so the first wisdom relies on the emptiness, the ultimate reality, is comprehending or realizing suchness, is so the emptiness, that is the selflessness, emptiness or selflessness of person and the phenomena. And by the means of generic image and wisdom comprehending suchness, that is selfless by the means of manifest. What it means is, having a realization or understanding of emptiness. First, we have, not directly. First, we have to conceptually, by using inference, reasoning, logics, we have that realization. It's an experiential realization, but it's not direct because we are still using our concept thoughts as tools to investigate, analyze, inference, reasoning, and so on. Through that we have one. And then that understanding is in the first 2 paths. And then as we continue to meditate over and over again and again, and then one is able to go beyond that generic image without that kind of concept, without that kind of inference, then one can have a direct realizations without that image, generic image. And so therefore, then when you have direct realization of the emptiness or ultimate reality, then you with someone then reach the third path, the path of seeing, So that's saying the wisdom, two kind of wisdom, manifesting it directly, And then second wisdom is skill in 5 area of knowledge, which we already spoke. What are those 5 areas of knowledge? And the third one consists in knowing how to accomplish without misdeed in the welfare of sentient beings in this and future life. So then, without engaging in any kind of misdeed, without engaging into any unwholesome and faulty deeds, to be able to help and benefit others in this and future life. Because sometimes, even when if we don't have that wisdom, sometimes even though we are trying to help someone, while we are helping someone, but at the same time we engage in a lot of misdeed, a lot of non-virtuous, unwholesome action at the same time. So then, we kind of dilute and pollute our good deeds of trying to help and benefit others by that kind of misdeed. And sometimes those misdeeds happen because due to lack of the wisdom, due to It is like, in order to help, whether it's human being or another animals, our pets, in order to save and help, in order to help someone, then we take another being's life and then we give to someone. Then that is, while we are helping someone, but we are taking life of another, that is misdeed, that is non-virtuous. One side, we are trying to do something virtuous, another side, and sometimes it is due to lack of wisdom, So if we have the right wisdom, then we can be helpful and benefit without having to do that. Then third, how to cultivate and develop that wisdom within one's mind stream, And to do that, again, contemplating on advantage of cultivating that wisdom and disadvantage of not generating that wisdom, and meditating, reflecting, contemplating on that again and again and again. And so here Lama Tsongkhapa explains some of the advantage, and then let us some of advantage of cultivating that wisdom, disadvantage of not generating that wisdom. And the first in the 100 verses of wisdom is, so it says, the root of all excellent qualities that we can seen that we experience this life, as well as unseen that we experience in the futures, are result of the wisdom, or the wisdom is the root of all those excellent qualities, And again, the more wisdom we have, and especially the wisdom of those 5 knowledge, especially the wisdom of realizing the emptiness or two truths, then definitely, we will have a much more better way to deal with any complex or situation that arises in our life, and so that we can be more, we have more tools to direct our life in the right directions, and make our life much more meaningful and less painful. And as well as with the wisdom, we can have a happiness of higher rebirth, liberations, and fully enlightenment, this life or in future lives. And so for the sake of accomplishing both, so we need to develop the wisdom in order to accomplish all the excellent qualities, good qualities, short-term quality, long-term good qualities, and the positive quality in this life and the futures, as well as to fulfill the purpose of ourselves and fulfill the purpose of others. So we need to develop that wisdom. And so then here also another is saying, how if we have the wisdom, how our other perfection, practice of other perfection, the other 5 perfection can become more pure and more authentic and more pure. If we don't have the wisdom, the other 5 perfections might not become as pure as it can be. And so here it is saying, for example, the bodhisattvas, higher level bodhisattvas, not all the bodhisattvas can do that, of course, but more higher level of the bodhisattvas, more highly realized bodhisattvas, they can make a generosity of not only the wealth and virtues, but even their body, such as flesh, and they are able to practice of giving, cutting their flesh when it is needed, your body, and give that without feeling any kind of resistance, hesitation, and pain, as though you are cutting vegetables. And they are able to do that because of that strong wisdom that relies emptiness directly, because of their selflessness, because they are so strong, because they have so strong realization of that selflessness, and supported by strong loving kindness, compassion, bodhicitta mind, then they are able to practice such a incredible generosity. For us at the moment is not possible, but and even for those not highly developed bodhisattvas, also they will not be able to do that, but highly developed, and they are able to because of that wisdom, in terms. So therefore, they are able to practice such a great practice of generosity without any kind of negative emotion, such as pride or being discouragement, or without fear, fearlessly they are able to do, and that is because of the wisdom. And also, by seeing through the wisdom, one is able to see, the shortcomings of either remaining samsara due to under the influence of the delusions and karma, as well as the disadvantage of having individual liberations. One is able to see both have disadvantage, and one is able to see through the wisdom, and then through the wisdom one is able to see, the best is to help benefit others and to achieve enlightenment. Through that wisdom, then one is able to practice moral discipline or ethical discipline for the welfare of other sentient beings, instead of for one's individual's samsaric excellent or even individual liberations, and thereby making our practice of moral discipline, ethical discipline more pure, more pure, not being tainted by the selfish attitude. And that is be done through the wisdom. Also through the wisdom, then we will be able to differentiate and understand, what are the disadvantages, what are the fault of impatience. When impatience happens, how does it hurt and harm us and others? On the other hand, when we are able to keep our mind more patient, how it helps us short-term, long-term, and how it helps others as well. Through that, then we are able to, understand all the benefit and excellent quality of patience and disadvantage impatience or shortcoming on that, and by that understanding, our mind will be more undisturbed and subdued. Our mind will undisturbed, and our mind will be more peaceful and subdued, even when we are faced with sufferings, in our life. Even when you are faced with a lot of challenges, difficulties, pain, and sufferings, whether it is created by, someone, or whether it is created by elements, whether it is created by, our karma, whatever, due to whatever, so, and that one is able to do because of the wisdom again, and so therefore one is able to practice the patience and not give up to impatience, and as well as one is able to maintain and not lose or decline that patience because of that wisdom. Also because of the wisdom, we are able to understand, all the benefit of the joyous effort, as well as shortcoming of the laziness, as well as through the wisdom, we know how to overcome those laziness and those obstacles, and how to cultivate all the conducive conditions to develop that joyous effort. And through that understanding, and when we apply that, and then we are able to develop the joyous effort, and through that joyous effort in our practice, in our virtues, and then we are able to make more progress and high progress in our path again, and we are able to do that because again of that wisdom. And again, through the wisdom, if we have the wisdom, then again, through that wisdom, we are able to investigate, we are able to analyze, we are able to make right distinguishings, right investigating, right analyze. And through that kind of analysis, then we can develop. And through that analyze and through that kind of powerful tools, then we can be able to practice and develop meditative concentrations and the joyfulness and the blissfulness that come through that mindfulness. Meditative concentrations, and that meditative concentrations that meditate on emptiness, the ultimate natures. And so therefore that wisdom help us to develop that meditative concentration, and that meditative concentrations help us to develop the wisdom that realizes emptiness. And so in that way, the wisdom help us to make our practice of other five perfections more pure, and to be able to complete them to be able to maintain and improve, and thereby complete and perfect those practices through the support and help of the wisdom. And so therefore that is why wisdom is so important, and why we need to develop that wisdom. Again, here also another how wisdom can help us to, sometimes in some of the teachings, if we don't have wisdom, sometimes when we are reading different sutras or different commentaries, different scriptures, sometimes it might appear there are contradictions within the different sutras, within the different teaching by Buddha himself, as well as among the different commentaries and so forth. And so then we might get confused, when you see two contradictions, then not knowing which is correct, which is truth, which is incorrect, which is not truth. And so, but if we have wisdom, then we will be able to make through our reasoning and logic, with our wisdom, we will be able to investigate, analyze, and try to see how they are, even though they seems literally contradiction, but how they are not contradicted. So that wisdom can help us on that. I think that is probably coming later. Here is where there seems to be two contradictions of two excellent qualities, and even though there's some opposite, but they are not. And so here giving some examples, someone like Bodhisattvas were to become like a universal monarchy with the power of four continents, or someone very rich, extremely rich, for example, while someone has so much power and wealth, and maybe even reputations, fame, and so forth, when we have that, normally, we tend to get attachment to those objects, temptations and attachment to those, and not wanting to let it go, whether it's a power, whether it's the fame, reputation, or whether it's the wealth, but the bodhisattvas, even they have all of that, even if they have all of that, they wouldn't have any kind of attachment to that, any kind of clinging and grasping to that. And they are able to do that through the force of like the minister of the wisdom. So here giving wisdom as giving as a very knowledgeable and very smart minister who helped the king. And so the same way, so normally it seems contradictions to become a true practitioner as a bodhisattvas, and then to have so much power or wealth and that, but then that does not have to be contradicted, even a bodhisattvas can have a power, good reputation, fame, and that wouldn't be a problem for them because of the wisdom. Because of the wisdom, then they are not attached to that. If you are not attached to that, then not only it doesn't become obstacles and harm your practice, but you can actually utilize all of them to reach out more sentient beings, to help and benefit more sentient beings in many different ways. And so then, and it is the wisdom that helps us to do that. For bodhisattvas and anyone who follow that path, while someone who is in that bodhisattva, while they have a very strong loving kindness when they see a sentient beings dear, near, and attractive, very strong, but still that loving kindness, that love is not mixed with attachment. So again, normally we get kind of mixed, our love get mixed with attachment, But for the bodhisattvas, even though they have such a strong loving kindness towards other sentient beings, but they are never kind of mixed with any attachment, tainted or diluted and polluted by the attachment and mixed with that. And again, because of the wisdom, they are able to go with attachment, and without any attachment, they can develop true loving kindness, pure loving kindness. Whereas for us, for those who doesn't have that wisdom, then, it's hard. If you have love, then there's attachment involved. And then also, when the bodhisattvas reflect, contemplate, or see any sentient beings suffering, intense suffering, or any small sufferings, when they see it, they feel it, and it feels their own pain and their own personal pain and suffering unbearable. And through that, they develop so much compassion, incredible, intense, and compassion for long durations. But while that are compassions, they have such a intense and long compassion with such a long duration, but they will not be overwhelmed by grief, sorrow, because of that, seeing that suffering and feeling that suffering. They will be not being overwhelmed by kind of like normally. That is what we do, when we feel someone's pain and suffering, sometimes we become very overwhelmed. And because of being so overwhelmed, that we don't have energy to do much, we just, and so, become so depressed, overwhelmed. Because of that overwhelmedness, then sometimes we become kind of very kind of depressed and too deep into that grievance, and not being able to come out of that state. And because of that, then we are unable to help and benefit, not able to do our own practice as well as help and benefit others. But the bodhisattvas, who have the wisdom that realizes emptiness, that wisdom, while they have such a strong compassion, that wisdom will make them not to be overwhelmed by that such pain and suffering. That wisdom will not make them to be too involved or by that kind of griefs and pain, and without any energies, And so again, that is what the wisdom help, and that through that, then it's help them to develop delight in engaging our practice in the virtues and helping benefit. While, the bodhisattvas or anyone who possess, immeasurable joy, equanimity joy, But while you have such a immeasurable joy, normally, again, when we have joy, we get too excited. And with that too excited, then we get distracted. But then both of we have wisdom. Even when they have great joy, because of their wisdom, they don't get too overly excited, and then they don't have so much distractions, And so that is, again, wisdom help to that, And again, even though someone has a great equanimity, and not only equanimity, just a moment, but for a long time, but then it doesn't make them indifferent, For us, when we try to develop equanimity, then again, we might become indifferent. Whereas Bodhisattvas who have that wisdom, while they have this strong equanimity, at the same time, they don't become indifferent to other sentient beings. Thereby, they don't neglect for the welfare of sentient beings. And again, that is because of the wisdom. Due to the wisdom, so they don't become indifferent and they don't neglect for the welfare of sentient beings, even for a moment. And all of this is due to the wisdoms, you know. So that is why we need to cultivate the wisdom. And that is why, again, in all the Buddha's teaching, we always talk about, you know, the importance of both the mind and the heart, in other way, the wisdom and the compassions, you know. And if we don't have the wisdom, you know, yeah, then even we have compassions, we're unable to achieve many for ourselves and for others. So then also, you know, if we have the wisdom, you know, then we will understand the true truth, ultimate truth and relative or conventional truth, complementing, enhancing each other's, supporting each other's, instead of, you know, seeing them contradictions, or instead of negating one of them. You know, if we don't have the wisdom, when we talk about emptiness, then there is danger that we negate the other reality, the conventional reality of causality, cause and effect. You know, on the other hand, when we have reflect, when you are understanding of the you know, conventional reality of cause and effect, or dependent arising, again, we might kind of reject the ultimate truth, you know, emptiness. And so, but if we have the right wisdom, neither we need to reject each of them, neither we see them contradictions, but we will be able to see them, you know, to see both reality simultaneously, same time, and not only simultaneously, same time, but not only not contradicting, but actually complementing and helping each others. And so, so here it is say, you know, we don't have to give up or disregard the emptiness, the ultimate reality, even when we have a great certainty that there is no inherently existing, truly existing, slightest, very smallest, you know, even in the most, within even the most smallest particles, even the most smallest particles, to everything that basically all, even though we, even when we have certainty, strong certainty, understanding, you know, that nothing exists inherently or truly existence, you know, we don't have to disregard the conventional reality, you know. So we don't have to disregard and contradict to in agreement in fact that conventional reality found, you know. So basically, here is saying, while we see there is no slightest of inherent existence, where everything's empty of inherent existence, at the same time, there is the functioning of law of cause and effect. There is the functioning of the reality, a conventional reality or relative reality. Due to certain cause and conditions, certain results, certain effect, certain consequences are created while they are empty of their inherent nature. And so therefore, then when we have wisdom, then we can see both of them without disregarding, without disregarding each of them or without negating each of them. But not only that, we see the meaning of emptiness is dependent arising. And when you see the meaning of emptiness is dependent arising, what that dependent arising mean? By depending on many cause, condition, factors, something exists. So therefore, it not only it does not disregard the dependent arising of conventional reality, it enforces the dependent arising. When you understand the meaning of emptiness and dependent arising, so it enforces our understanding of law of cause and effect become more stronger. On the other hand, when we understand the meaning of dependent arising is emptiness, then again, when we see, certain objects that is depending arising due to many cause, conditions, factors, and so forth, then we understand they are empty of inherent nature, they are empty of independent nature, and therefore it enforces and make our understanding of emptiness even more stronger. And one is able to do that because of the wisdom. So therefore it says, those without the sharp mind, without the wisdom, their ability to able to understand those things, then they see contradiction between those two realities. When they see emptiness, they reject the conventional reality. They cannot see it. When they see the conventional reality, if they see conventional, they cannot see the emptiness, and they reject it, and they see contradictions. But if someone possesses the wisdom, and any person who have wisdom and that sharp mind, then they don't see any contradictions. But instead, they see compatible, supporting each other. And so therefore, again, we see that is why we need the wisdom. And so that was what I was saying before, So, in some of the Buddha's teachings, if you go through the different Buddha's teachings, sometimes literally you find contradictions. In some, Buddha advised not to do, and in some other scriptures, he advised it to do. In some, he, prohibition, and in some, there is permission to do it. In some, not only permission, actually, you have to do it, And so there seems to be contradictions. But again, those are contradictions if someone doesn't have wisdom. But if someone has a study enough, and then they use their own reasoning and logic, wisdom, intelligence, then you see, oh, there are not contradictions. We see why we see why such different teaching or advice, instructions given to different sentient beings in different circumstances, for different purposes, and then we see, oh, they are not contradictions, but if we don't have that, then it can be contradictions. So therefore, for example, in some of the Vinaya, teachings, that is common teachings, that is the common practice and teachings for the both Theravada and Mahayana, those which is dealing with the vows, the rules, regulations, and rules and regulations, in some, those changes, some which Buddha instructed not to do at the very beginning, later he instructed them to do it. Some which he have instructed to do in the past, in the beginning, he instructed not to do in the later. Or in some give permission and later no permission. And again, because of different, because those rule changes according to the time, the society, according to the situations, and so if we don't understand all this background and use our wisdom, then we can see contradictions, and we find into which to follow, which to not to follow, So for example, one of the thing, one of the kind of advice or rules, is not to take too much of bath, because you are wasting the resource, wasting your time, and for your health, you don't need that bath every day, But then when they were moving, because at Buddha's time they were moving, and then when they reach a place where it's extremely hot and humid, sweating, then the rule changed. Then the rule is that they have to bath every day in order to keep themselves healthy. And so again, that changes, and so we have to understand why. And even within the lower and higher path, like some of the, for example, in Vinaya, it is strictly prohibited from engaging in any of the 10 non-virtuous actions. Prohibited completely. We have to, even at the cost of our life, we have to restrain or refrain from engaging in any of 10 non-virtuous actions. But when it comes to Bodhisattva's path in Mahayana teachings, some of those are giving permissions when it's coming from Bodhicitta mind. For example, in order to save someone's life, you can lie, for example. Or in order to help someone, sometimes if it is helpful to be to use a harsh word, tough, being a little bit tough, because it helped that person. And sometimes that is allowed, not only allowed, sometimes you do when that is the best way to help them. So that changes. So it seems there's a contradiction, but there's not contradictions. If you have the wisdom, you see for different in a Vinaya, because it's for your individual, it's not for yourself, for your own purpose. You are discouraged, you are prohibited from engaging that. But in the Mahayana teachings, if it's coming from out of compassion, real compassion, Bodhicitta mind, is because it becomes a way to help and benefit others, then you are permitted to that, and in some cases you have to do it when you know it is beneficial. And then also it changes even within the Prasnaparamita, Mahayana Sutra and Tantra, some of the things in a sutra, again, we have to give up the attachment totally, any of the delusions. There's no permission for that. But again, in tantric practice, highly realized practitioners, who have all the basic foundation of the Mahayana, of the pure renunciation, bodhicitta mind, and wisdom, when they have all this realization and when they engage the high tantric practice, and when they are working with their, their channels and wind channels and so on, then in some other situation, then again, the attachment is utilized in order to open your chakra and so forth. So therefore, there is permission. Again, the attachment, for example, attachment can be, and so you see there are some kind of seems like contradiction. But if we have studied enough, and we have the wisdom to make those differentiations, then we wouldn't see contradiction, but instead we see how each of them are a means and tools, way to help and benefit more sentient beings and to guide them more higher. So that is yeah, so that is again, yeah. If we don't have the wisdom, and if we don't use our intelligence to investigate, analyze, and if we become just a blind faith, then we can always find contradictions. Maybe one teacher said do this, and another teacher said not to do that, and then we totally get lost, totally get confused, because there is contradictions and we don't know which to follow. But if we have studied enough, and if we use our own intelligence and wisdom on the basis of from what we have learned and all of that, then even there is two different advice which seems contradiction, then we can be able to understand and make both of them uncontradictions, because why that teacher said to do that, and why this teacher said, and whether for certain, and how, which to follow, which not to follow, and how to, if we cannot follow the other advice, how can we kind of take it in a different ways without being disrespectful, and so that, and if we have the wisdom, we will be able to do that. But if we don't have wisdom, then we will have a lot of confusion and a lot of difficulties, So then explain disadvantage of not cultivating or generating wisdom, So of course, it will be opposite of everything, but also there are some others here explain, as it is mentioned, if the wisdom is not there, then the other 5 perfections does not become pure, as it is mentioned before as well. Here it says, if we don't have the wisdom, realize we don't have the wisdom, will not be able to practice the generosity purely and completely, because then we might just practice generosity, out of attachments to have more wealth for ourselves in this life and future life, then again our generosity become not so pure. On the other hand, if we have wisdom, then without any clinging, grasping to the result of that generosity, we just give purely, to the help and benefit. And so when that happens, then the practice of generosity become completely pure, and that become the best of the gift, best of the generosity, when we are able to give without any clinging, grasping, without any expectations, without any hope. And that is, we are able to do that due to if we have the wisdom, we can do that. And if we don't have the wisdom light to dispel the darkness, of the clinging and grasping, then again, even when we try to practice moral discipline or ethical discipline, again, it will be not so pure, because, due to lack of that wisdom, again, our ethical moral discipline still can be motivated by some of the delusions, some of the affective emotions, maybe, for example, not engaging in any of those non-virtuous actions because maybe we don't want to look bad in the face in other people. We don't want to, So it is attachment to our reputations. It's attachment to people disliking us. So your practice of being a nice and helpful, not killing, not stealing, all of that is based on, because you don't want to look bad to others, because you don't want others to dislike you. So it is all about yourself again. And so that even when you practice such, on the basis of such, if we practice ethical moral discipline, is still impure, not so pure, it's not completely pure. But when we have wisdom, then again, we can, through wisdom, we can let go of any kind of that clinging, grasping, and therefore, when you practice the ethical, that become completely pure, So it is also said, if we don't have the wisdom, our mind will be easily disturbed by such as anger and so forth. And when our mind is being disturbed by such as anger and so forth, then we will become impatient. And if we become impatient, then we will lose our state of being patient. And if we lose the state of being patient, then we lose all the incredible positive qualities that come due to the patience. So we lose all this excellent quality of patience due to impatience, and that due to the other affective emotions, and that is due to the not having the wisdom. If we have wisdom, again, through that wisdom, we can, and so therefore, again, we can maintain the patience. If we have the wisdom, through that wisdom, we are able to maintain the patience and not lose the patience. And through that, then we are able to complete and perfect the patients and not give to them. So it is giving, even someone such as a leader or king or leader or anyone, even they have any fame, even they might have fame at the very beginning, people liking them, people liking that, but if that leader or the persons is impatient, and if they are overwhelmed by anger and hatred, then they will lose, all the respect, the fame, people's respect, people's love, and everyone then. And again, we can see even in our present time, even with our president, I think so many people who have supported him at the very beginning, I think they have a different view now. They have lost whatever respect, whatever they have now because of that. And also the wisdom is the most sublime and supreme in terms of discerning, and of course, there is nothing more subtle or deeper than the wisdom that can completely, overcome the desire and all the delusions. And without the wisdom, we cannot make much more progress. Without the wisdom realizing the emptiness, the highest we can make is the first path, the path of accumulations. And then we cannot go further than that if we don't have the wisdom, And of course, if you have the wisdom, again, your practice of joyous effort and meditative concentrations will be also more stable, more stronger, and more pure. I think there was one question. Let me. Is the ethical discipline of concentrations similar or same as the 3 higher training of ethic? Which kind of wisdom is helping us have love not mixed with attachment, compassion without laziness, and so on? It is the wisdom that realizes the emptiness, because if we have the wisdom realizing emptiness, and then definitely, we don't have attachments, and without attachment, then we don't get mixed with that love and attachments, with them. So here the wisdom is talking about the wisdom realizing the emptiness, because we are talking about the disadvantage of this 6th perfection, the wisdom. So it is talking about that. So it is talking about the wisdom relies on the selflessness or emptiness. Reinforce is for what? When something acts to strengthen something else or make even stronger what is said, such as dependent arising emptiness. Reinforcing, okay. Enforce is like police. Oh, okay. Thank you for clarifying that. So yeah, I think maybe I might have used enforce instead of reinforce. So thank you, Rachel, for clarifying that. So yeah, depending arising and emptiness, reinforcing each other's, not enforcing each other's. Okay. So I think maybe we will I think today maybe we will just, since time, I thought maybe I might be able to finish today this one, but I guess maybe we have a little bit of that. One page, so okay. So any others? Anyone? Any other has any questions, comments? Okay. If not, then we can we can do the dedications. Yawadi nyoto ta Lama Tsongkhapa ne do chi kyang ma le e sala we ba sho chang jo sen jo rin bo che ma ke pa na ke kyo che ke wa nyam ba me ba yang kong le kong tu ke wa sho. The wish granting, wish fulfilling jewel, source of every single benefit and happiness in this world, to the incomparably kind Tenzin Gyatso, I beseech, may all your holy wishes be spontaneously fulfilled. To chang xin chang gen jiawe, yan zin jiang pe we kun su to po zi, chou sun ku we le ma tu tu, ha da sa du je kun du sha pen shou. Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone. Especially thank you, Rachel, for clarifying the reinforce and enforcing that part.